education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the
measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
governance structures that run these centers so that
and also
they are not treated as by the way institutions.
It also
The bill underpins the way institutions.
against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, to the national
Governance structures that run these centers
ECD centers. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines and punishments that will befall those who become victims of this situation. This bill further looks at the role of the county government, who's the main player in this in ECD, and tries to bring in other stakeholders that make it possible so that the county government does not seem to be running ECDs alone. Makes it possible for local partnership and also for working closely together with the departments of the national government. I want to say that in view of the processes that this bill has gone through, and for the fact that it has brought a new face to the Ministry of Education, I will stand to second this bill, the 26th bill of 2018. Thank you very much.
Order, members. Order, Honorable Kaluma. Yeah? Sorry, the Honorable Iringo Kubai, member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice into this bill. Madam Speaker, Mutai Iringo is a Marian like me, but you are not related.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam
So
Speaker.
by all means, it's Honorable Iringo Kubai, member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me thank the Chair and the Committee of Education for having presented this bill, and more so that he has put it that the committee is proposing amendments, which I also feel we need to put. Despite that the ministry indeed is bit, I feel in this bill there are some gray areas which need to be policed further, at least so that we can fine-tune this bill and at least put the early childhood learning in this, to give its correct space in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our children, when they start learning, I think that is the basic foundation. That's why they are called even nurseries. And you find, Madam Speaker, even a nursery where we plant trees or we grow other crops, the nursery is tended more neatly than where the seedlings are put after maturity. But in our schools, Madam Speaker, if you go to our schools today, you will find that nursery schools or the early childhood classes are neglected to the level that you find standard 1 to 8. That is where everything, all the focus is put, all the initiative, all the efforts are put, including the infrastructure. But when you go where the nursery school kids are learning, you find them, the classes are dilapidated. The classes are not even there. Some of them maybe are around a tree in some remote areas. More so, Madam Speaker, even their teachers, you find that a school or parents will go and pick a lady somewhere in the village who has not even been trained just to be nursing to be teaching their children. And that is a very bad foundation and a poor foundation for our children, Madam Speaker. Therefore, if our children have to have a good beginning and have a good future, we need to start with that good beginning by giving them the correct infrastructure so that they can be able to learn nicely. They need qualified teachers who knows what they are doing. And I know these teachers must they are more important even the ones who are teaching in secondary schools, because they are nursing these children from the word go and immediately they start their learning. Madam Speaker, as we talk today, you'll find that if you go to a school, you'll find that there is the head teacher of a primary school who is answerable to the TSC, and there's the ECD teacher or teachers. If there are many classes, they work on their own independently. They are never assessed. Nobody takes to know their problems. Even if they have to call, they have their complaints, nobody will listen to them because they don't have any structure. Madam Speaker, this bill should have a structure whereby the ECD teachers, they have their own maybe union, they have their own structure, or they are assimilated in the current unions, so that at least they have a bargaining power. If you go across the country, Madam Speaker, you might find that we have got salary structures for us ECD teachers as there are other 47 counties. Each county gives its salary according to its whim, the way they want. They just give their salary. But we need to have a structure like a TSC, where we know that a P1 teacher starts with his salary A, and after so many years, you will end up with salary B. But in the current situation, Madam Speaker, you'll find that an ECD teacher earning only 6,000 Kenya shillings, taking care of around 50 children, and if he doesn't have leave, there's no structure of how he works, that should be addressed, Madam Speaker. More so, Madam Speaker, there should be a link between the TSC, the Ministry of Education, and the county governments. In our current structure, as we talk, Madam Speaker, you find that there is a Minister of Education manning the administrative bit of the school. There's the TSC manning the human resource of the teachers, and the county government manning the ECD teachers. So one institution has got 3 big umbrellas on top, and none of them sit together to see how they can harmonize or see that things are moving smoothly. An example, Madam Speaker, I went to a Saturday school in my constituency, Gembe Central, and when I went there and I called the teachers, and we were to meet the teachers and the students to talk to them, the ECD class was left out. So I asked them, why are they not coming? They said that is the county government class. I told them, no, they are pupils of this school, and they must come and listen to what we are saying. Therefore, that disconnect has been there, Madam Speaker, and this bill will need to cure that one with amendments which will be brought. Madam Speaker, I would agree with the county governments being given the honors of putting up the structures or building up the classrooms. But then the personnel should come from the TSC, like the teachers. And more so, if need be, even that the putting up of the classrooms, they need to do the structures of the classrooms which are put. They are put in a way that they are uniform across the school or across the county, so that some are not done haphazardly like it is usually happening. Because once you find the ECD class, the way it is put up, it does not appear as if it is like the classroom of a class in that particular school. Madam Speaker, opening of these schools, I appreciate that the chair has put it that we will need to accredit. Where do we open this school? Which is ripe for opening? Do we have the right correct structures? Safety measures, have they been taken care of? And all other issues which need to be looked into before we start a school. Because currently, these ECD early childhood classrooms are mushrooming from nowhere, Madam Speaker. Somebody designs behind the shop somewhere. Somebody designs behind a kiosk somewhere. Someone designs just at the back of the church. You find that they put a structure, maybe 3, 4, 5 stools, and you find the children there. That is very wrong, Madam Speaker. We need to have structures. These children are delicate. They are vulnerable to diseases. They are vulnerable to injuries. They are vulnerable to so many things. They are vulnerable to abuse. They need to be taken care of very delicately, as they are delicate beings, before they get the strength and the will to go out there and be able to do their own things. More so, they need even space for playing. Because children, they don't require a football field. They require a small place where they can play, playing materials, and just like things. There should be those structures. And that is the way we can monitor our children and bring them up, knowing that they were at a very good base. Madam Speaker, let me conclude by saying, again, I reiterate, ECD teachers must be taken care of, must be handled, must be respected and remunerated just like any other teacher, because they lay the foundation of the learning of our children. I support the bill, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Well said. Let's have the Honorable Didmas Barasa, member for Kimilili.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support
this very important bill, Madam Speaker. But my only worry is that we have so many laws that are passed by this House where a lot of work is needed is in the implementation, and more specifically, monitoring compliance with these particular laws, Madam Speaker. And how I wish that going forward as a House, we can even approve or rather demand that the agencies that are supposed to implement or rather monitor implementation of these laws have a particular checklist that contains the metrics that can be measured, Madam Speaker, because these laws are passed for a purpose, and the sole purpose that is to improve the early childhood education in this country, Madam Speaker, and without proper monitoring to ensure that ECD centers complies with the requirements of this law, we will be passing these laws in futility, Madam Speaker. But I'm happy that this law is also concerned about the safety of the children of this country, the early childhood students, pupils, Madam Speaker, because today, everywhere, we have a lot of mushrooming early child care centers that have not even been approved by government, Madam Speaker, and this kind of mushrooming ECD centers are even centers that breeds diseases for our children because they do not comply with the regulations. And I'm happy that this bill seeks to cure that particular problem, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, education is a very important function. Early childhood education is a very important function because it sets the foundation for the career path for the children of this country, and it must be a shared responsibility between county governments and national governments, Madam Speaker, because at the end of the day, that these children must be given proper education, even as they go to primary schools, and marching forward, we will be sure that we are getting good products from ECD centers. Like we say, that garbage in is garbage out. And the way a child of this country performs in primary and secondary schools, it depends on the foundation under which this child got during ECD centers. And as such, this bill is very, very important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also want to ask this House that even as we support this bill, the Committee on Implementation must also move with speed to ensure that this bill is implemented, because I'm aware that this House has passed so many bills that are even those after bills have been ascended to law by the President. You see even some agencies are not even implementing this particular bills, Madam Speaker, and that one should be able to move with speed, Madam Speaker. And I also want to ask our colleagues in the Senate. We have seen in the recent past they have been taking a lot of time to dispense of the bills that have come out of this House, that this is a very important bill and that they should move with speed. If this House will approve it and forward it to the Senate can also do the same and really move with speed and also approve this bill, because it touches on the mandates of the county governments directly. And as you know, the Senate is the custodian of devolution in this country, and that I am concerned that they will be able to process this bill as quickly as possible. Madam Speaker, with these very few remarks, I support this bill. Thank you.
Let's have the Honorable Member for Lamu County, the Honorable Captain Rueda.
Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi hii nami kuchangia kwenye hoja hii. Bi Speaker, upande wa elimu ni sekta muhimu sana. Nimekuwa hapa kuanza
Kiharu constituency. The Honorable Nyoro Ndindi. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I rise to support. Madam Speaker, I have listened to the sentiments from my colleagues, and I side with most of them because this bill seeks to improve the early childhood education for our children, Madam Speaker. And from where I sit, Madam Speaker, pre-primary and ECD, whichever way you'd want to call it, is not just purely about learning, but it's also more about growing. Because I remember even in our time, Madam Speaker, going to nursery school then, as it was called, was not an experience to go and learn per se. It was not about the issue of doing examinations afterwards and graduating towards going to class 1, but it was an experience to go and meet your buddies. It was an experience to go and experience much more than the curriculum.
Institution, it was established at the dawn of the independence, at the early period, in the early 60s. It is one of the institutions that we have in this country, I think only the 2 or 3. But during those early periods, provisions for the physically challenged were not there. But I want to say that as we went there, the school administration has actually come in and tried to improvise that, so that the physically challenged, those who have issues of mobility and others, can actually use the facilities quite well. And this is actually something that we have told all county executive CECs in charge of education to ensure that they really provide those services. In Part 3, the bill provides the establishment of registration and maintenance of early childhood education centers in the county government. The application for registration shall be submitted to County Education Board in prescribed form. In fact, in details, Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to really look at the sector in a radical way. That as we move forward, early childhood centers shall not be established in the current form, where churches or centers or even well-wishers can just bring students together and just ask for registration from the government. No, they shall be required first of all to put facilities in place. Ensure those facilities have actually been inspected. Ensure that those facilities meet the requirements of the health officer, the public health department, the public works, so that we stop the problem that we just saw the other day, where students and teachers are actually living in shanties or actually working in shanties in name of schools. So with this bill is actually put in place, it shall be mandatory that before any center is going to be registered and be known as a ECD center, it has to meet those particular requirements. The students will be the last. In the current form, Madam Speaker and honorable members, you'll realize that even in our constituencies, we have pressure. As members of parliament, at times, you are told, we have students up to class 4 in manual classes. And the member of parliament is put pressure that kindly register this, because there's nothing we can do, because the students are already there. But in this particular instance, we are asking the county executive member to ensure that the structures and the infrastructure and all the required facilities are in place. Same thing, Madam Speaker, the bill also in Part 3 provides for the substitutability and change of premises for an education center as well as mobile schools, which shall be established based on requirements prescribed by the Cabinet Secretary. It has been known some early or ECD centers are mobile, but these cannot. You cannot change an ECD center or a mobile center in a form that is prescribed and shall be actually guided on the bill. On Part 4, the bill provides for the management of early childhood education centers, which will be vested in the Board of Management. It provides for the establishment of boards of management for early childhood educational centers. And this is actually a managerial area where the bill seeks to establish all the BOMs in early childhood educational centers. In areas where they are existing, or what I will call standalone, they shall have their own BOMs. But in areas where they exist with the mainstream school, they shall actually be integrated in it and become part of the school BOM. In Part 4, the bill seeks or provides for the administration of early childhood education systems. The part provides for each county government shall provide for the overall governance and management of early childhood education centers. I think this is actually very important, especially the role of the CEC, the role of the early childhood education teachers, and the role of county government in managing it, because it is purely a county government function. The part also prohibits certain actions such as administration of exams for purpose of admission, holding back of pupils, expulsion from center, and changing of tuition fees in charging of tuition fees in public educational centers. A few minutes ago, one of our honorable members did say there are some schools charging illegal fees. And this is something that I think it has been talked about every other time in this house. You'll find that some schools charge admission fees, tuition fees, and all of this. And this law, this bill seeks to make sure that those things are outlawed, they are illegal, they are prohibited. And I think the Minister of Education and the Minister needs to take this very seriously, and the County Executive CEC in charge of early childhood education, so that all schools, all early educational centers shall not charge that particular exam. And the bill is very clear, the law is very clear on that particular matter. In Part 4 also it provides that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development shall be responsible for development of early childhood education curriculum to be applied in all counties. The section is very important so as to make ECD standard across the counties. I know there are certain peculiarities, especially on mother tongue, especially on cultures, and many other things. But the curriculum development shall be responsible for development of early childhood education well-developed curriculum to be applied ICD, but in conjunction with the county executive. The section is very important so as to make Part 5, the bill provides for the accreditation of early education centers offering foreign curriculum by the county education board. On cultures and many other things. Shall include curriculum application in the accreditation. We are talking about foreign curriculums. And in this case, we have certain early education centers which offer a foreign curriculum. And in this sense, those which offer GCE or other type of curriculum has to be actually accredited or actually be approved by the county education boards. And most of those are actually very common, especially in the capital city, that is the city of Nairobi, where we have a number of educational institutions offering foreign curriculum. On the same note, Madam Speaker, the bill provides that the certificate of accreditation shall be valid for 5 years and renewable subject to the education center meeting the prescribed conditions. And in this case, we are talking about the early educational center accreditation. Madam Speaker, it should also be noted that the bill provides for the revocation of certificate where an education center fails to comply with a standard of accreditation. The part mandates the county education board to establish and maintain a register of accredited education centers, and this register shall be open to the public for inspection. That is actually a matter for quality assurance. To quality assure the various centers across the country, that is very mandatory. So that each and every center has to meet particular well-established criteria for them to operate. Part 7 of the bill, Madam Speaker and members, provides for the quality assurance. It enables the County Early Childhood Quality Assurance Committee, which shall be in consultation with the County Education Standards Council, ensure the maintenance of standards of education and ensure the implementation of guidelines and policies formulated by the council. This is a very important thing, and I think it is actually going to ensure that all the county education ECDE centers are actually done and they are actually run as required by law. Part 8, Madam Speaker, the bill also seeks to provide safety and protection of children in an educational center and accounted for. And the buildings and the structures that are put in place should not actually be in a way that can injure the child in that particular center. The part also requires the Cabinet Secretary to prescribe minimum standards for the health and safety of pupils for the satisfactory or enforcement for the education. We know that the health of these children is actually is actually still fragile. Actually, a number of them in a way that can injure the child in that particular center. So many things. The part also requires the Cabinet Secretary to prescribe minimum standards for the health and safety of pupils for the satisfactory or enforcement for the education. We know that the health of these children is actually very staying and playing is actually still fragile. Actually, a number of them in a way that can injure the child in that particular center. So many things. The part also requires the Cabinet Secretary to prescribe minimum standards for the health and safety of pupils. We know in the bill. And I think this is an area where, if we have it right, all the way from ECDE, we shall have it right all the way to colleges and even secondary schools. And even the issues of collapsed buildings, the issue of fires shall be a thing of the past. Madam Speaker, on Part 9, The bill provides, under the same pattern, Madam Speaker, part 8, the bill also outlaws corporal punishment, emotional or psychological abuse on learners. A few weeks ago, I stood in this house to issue a statement as a result of a child who passed on, and it is alleged that she was actually abused by the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learners, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. By the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learners, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. By the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learners, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. By the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learners, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. By the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learner, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. By the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learner, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. By the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learner, because this will injure them as they are
by the way institutions. The bill underpins the partnership that is required to see the county government role clearing up to the national government role in terms of successful implementation and also quality management of ECD centers. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private.
Madam Speaker, I want to note that this early education bill is actually a very important bill for this House, for this nation. And Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to, in my submission, Madam Speaker, I've just looked at the bill in various parts. The bill seeks to provide a framework for the establishment of systems for the administration of early childhood education within the counties. As we speak currently, Madam Speaker, we haven't no legal framework on early childhood education. You'll realize that counties are running the early childhood education without any clear legal framework. And this is a very important document which is going to guide this and farm the early childhood education into the laws of this country. Paragraph 9 of Part 2 of the 4th schedule to the Constitution provides that pre-primary education is a function
Kiharu constituency.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I rise to support.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I have listened to the sentiments from my colleagues,
the Education Committee,
and I side with most of them because this bill seeks to improve the early childhood education for our children, Madam Speaker. And from where I sit, Madam Speaker,
that is the early childhood education.
Pre-primary and ECD, whichever way you would want to call it, is not just purely about learning, but it's also more about growing. And because I remember even in our time, Madam Speaker, going to
education, basic education is free and compulsory. And the Basic Education Act proceeds to define what basic education is. So it defines the basic education to include the early childhood education and proceeds on. So I want to thank the committee because this law acknowledges the need to align the ECD into the Education Act properly so that it is part and parcel of the...
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the motion that the Early Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I want to note that
Education Act properly so that it is part and parcel of the...
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the motion that the Early Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I want to note that
we'll have a clear governance structures that run these centers so that they are not treated as a by-the-way institutions. The bill underpins the partnership that is required to see the county government role clearly linked to the national government role in terms of successful implementation and also quality management of ECD
Thank you very much,
centers.
Madam Speaker, and I rise
also
to support.
Provides
And
punitive measures
Madam Speaker, I have
against
listened
those
to
who
the
fail
sentiments from my
to
colleagues,
deliver the
and I side with
education
most
at
of
this
them
level,
because
both
this
in
bill
private
seeks to improve
and also in
the
public
early
centers,
childhood education for our children, Madam
with the
Speaker.
clear,
And from where I sit, Madam Speaker, pre-primary and ECD, whichever way you would want to call it, is not just purely about learning, but it's also more about growing. Because I remember even in our time, Madam Speaker, going to nursery school then, as it was called, was not an experience to go and learn per se. It was not about the issue of doing examinations afterwards and graduating towards going to class 1, but it was an experience to go and meet your buddies. It was an experience to go and experience much more than the curriculum would offer. And therefore, Madam Speaker, even as we talk about improving our ECD, it is important for us to focus on facilities that go beyond learning and actually that promote more of growing. Because, Madam Speaker, as we talk about early childhood, this is a period where perceptions are shaped, and of course, a lot of what we believe in, even as adults, were shaped during our early childhood, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I would wish, and I'm sure most of it has been taken care of by the bill, that we have much more facilities beyond classrooms. Madam Speaker, we talked about playground and, of course, well-endowed facilities for these children, Madam Speaker, to participate even in what children can do better or does better. Madam Speaker, also, I am elated because for the first time, we are going to standardize the curriculum of our ECDs, Madam Speaker. Because from where I come from, any ECD and every ECD actually teaches what they deem best. And Madam Speaker, these children graduate to go and face another standardized curriculum from grade 1. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is only better and it's only good that we standardize our curriculum from down there at ECD level so that we can have basic standardized material, Madam Speaker, on which we feed to these young ones so that, Madam Speaker, they can be in the same wavelength even as they go to the primary schooling, Madam Speaker. And also the issue of the tutors and the teachers of these ECDs, Madam Speaker. I can dare say that we have improved as a nation because previously, Madam Speaker, the teachers of ECD would just be picked from the village, Madam Speaker, and especially to those who would speak most in the village. But Madam Speaker, now, after the proliferation of many colleges that especially prepare teachers to go and teach those young ones, Madam Speaker, we have many more qualified people out there, Madam Speaker. What we need is there are interviews, even as we hire them, Madam Speaker, so that we can hire those people who are competently trained, Madam Speaker, and to go and handle and teach and prepare these young ones. But Madam Speaker, also, I have noted something even in my constituency, where we have many ECDs centers located in places very far away from normal primary schools. And Madam Speaker, this week, actually this week, I was in a place called Mujini in Muranga town, where we were trying to relocate the ECD there to go to a place that we have a primary school, like Mujini Primary School. And I believe this duplicates in so many other constituencies, Madam Speaker, where it becomes very hard for the management of these ECDs, and especially those that are located very far away from primary schools. Madam Speaker, we need also, especially in where we should input amendments, Madam Speaker, to have these ECD centers domiciled within primary schools, Madam Speaker, so that we can take advantage of the head teacher as the head of the primary school, also taking care of these ECDs, Madam Speaker, other than having primary schools in different areas and ECD centers flanked outside and far away from their counterparts who are in primary schools. Madam Speaker, the issue of the cost of ECD is also a main issue, especially to parents. Because, Madam Speaker, currently we have capitation and almost free primary education, and especially in public schools, and we are paying a lot of money also to the students in high schools through capitation. But, Madam Speaker, we don't take care of the parents who have these young ones in these learning institutions. And in some areas, Madam Speaker, it's very expensive because some of the areas, actually teachers have to cough to supplement the county governments in terms of employing more teachers. Madam Speaker, on this, I am sure in the coming, we'll be able to relook at this bill, Madam Speaker, so that we can improve it even in future, so that we can have those people who are pre-primary being taken care of by the Treasury through the Ministry of Education, so that, Madam Speaker, we can also have them sponsored partly or even fully by the government. Also, Madam Speaker, something that is also very key. These people and these young children, Madam Speaker, even beyond learning, they also need to be fed. And Madam Speaker, it is said that an angry man A hungry man is an angry man. Madam Speaker, some of these young ones come from families that can barely actually be able to even afford one meal. And therefore, Madam Speaker, for us to have standards in these learning institutions, the government, even during our time it used to be there, we used to take porridge. The government should look at the issue of standardizing education, even beyond books, and going even to the lunch, and especially lunch, Madam Speaker, meals and especially lunch, that is taken by these young ones, Madam Speaker, because as I said there before, the issue of ECD and the mandate of ECD is not purely about these young ones coming out with flying grades, but it is also an institution to grow these young ones to be responsible citizens, to be energetic citizens, Madam Speaker, and that can only happen if you also take care of their diet. Madam Speaker, lastly, we have a very good model, and especially through TSC. But Madam Speaker, the same problem we have in the health sector is also duplicated in our ECDs, where in our health sector, Madam Speaker, we find that the nurses and the doctors, for example, in the county of Nairobi, for them to go and work in a county, a different county, they would have to resign from here and go and seek fresh employment from the other counties, Madam Speaker. And I think, Madam Speaker, because these people go to the same colleges, the kind of work they do, and especially after standardizing the curriculum, is the same. Madam Speaker, going forward, we need to enrich our early childhood education by having an equivalent of TSC, Madam Speaker, that number one, addresses the issue of standardizing the salaries of ECD teachers, Madam Speaker, but also in terms of flexibility of working locations, Madam Speaker, so that a person relocating from this county to the other will not need to necessarily be subjected to having to resign from the other place and seek fresh employment in the different county, Madam Speaker. And I think the issue of flexibility of labor is one of the prerogatives of a growing economy, and especially in an era where we are trying to change our curriculum to prepare our human personnel to be top-notch. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Let me have the member for Taita Taveta, the women representative, that is Honorable Mizinki Unene.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me opportunity to also add my voice into this very important bill. Madam Speaker, having learned what it entails, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Committee of Education and the Chair for a work well done. Madam Speaker, most of these requirements and proposals that are in this bill are very important and very, they are relevant, Madam Speaker, into making our education system better, or to upgrade our education sector, and most importantly, the ECD, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, again, having listened to most of us speak of this bill, Madam Speaker, I can see and I've heard that the bill is well articulated. It has touched most of these contentious issues that are in the education sector, and therefore, Madam Speaker, I support this bill, knowing that, Madam Speaker, if this bill can be implemented, then, Madam Speaker, it shall change the lives of our children in this country, and it will make education sector, most importantly, the ECD, a better place for our children. I support this bill, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Very well. Well spoken. The member for Nyaribari Masaba is in the house. Honorable Obaki.
Thank you very much, Madam, for giving me the opportunity.
Machogu. Is it Machogu or Machogu?
Machogu Mbaki.
Machogu, okay, very well.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. One, I would like us to understand where we are and where we want to go. One, as a country the Kenyan Constitution, Article 53, clearly spells out that indeed basic education is compulsory and is supposed to be free. Each and every Kenyan child is supposed to access education at that particular level. But what is happening, Madam Speaker, in our various constituencies, including mine, is that this is not the case. Why is it that this is not the case? Because we all know that early childhood is critical, is important, if indeed education is going to be the pillar of our development that it is. But the way things are, when we came up with the new constitution and we distributed and allocated functions, all the other segments of basic education were given to national government. And early childhood was given to our counties, and the counties, I think, have not embraced this idea that basic education is not only necessary, but as enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution, is free and compulsory. Why do I say so? A number of our counties have not given priority to this very important area. And you find any given year, no substantial allocation is made to this particular area that is so critical, Mr. Speaker. And that is why you find in our areas no infrastructure, no facilities as required are actually existing. Even payment of teachers, like my constituency, I know of one particular early childhood center where the parents are contributing money, giving 100 shillings per term in order for the teacher to be paid, meaning the county, which is supposed to have taken the responsibility, has kind of abdicated their responsibility. And I hope with this bill now, the endorsement and the passing of this bill, the counties will come back to their senses and take up this particular responsibility, which is so key because, Madam Speaker, it is at that first and initial impression which a child gets, this foundation, which will make him or her be enthusiastic about education, because if we don't make them to be enthusiastic at this particular level, then even when they join standard grade 1 and going on, it might be able to affect their education, Madam Speaker. And even finally, Madam Speaker, I think we should also be able to look at the size of the acreage of these particular educational centers, because some of us, where we come from, you find a primary school which is accommodating most of these centers hardly has 2 acres. So if we say the minimum is going to be 1 acre, then that will be quite problematic in a number of areas, including where I come from, Madam Speaker, in this particular aspect. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill and congratulate the committee which has brought it over. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. I'm sure those proposals the chairperson is in and this committee, and as members, you know the right way to do it. Then let me have the member for Karachuonyo constituency, the Honorable Odol Okuome Adipo.
Okuome.
Okuome.
Thanks, Madam. Madam Speaker, thanks for giving me this opportunity so that I can air my voice in support of the bill. I, however, see quite a number of challenges in my constituency, as well as other constituencies I've visited. Let me start, Madam Speaker, by saying something about the teachers. The teachers we have for ECDE are in a number of cases just picked from amongst the population surrounding the centers. They are not well trained, and therefore they are ill-equipped for the exercise they are required to do. Madam Speaker, when I'm talking that way, I mean that such kind of variation, so that in other centers they have well-trained teachers and others don't have trained teachers, we are creating a difference in standard when we are starting our children off for education. Therefore, would really want a lot of emphasis to be put on training the teachers who are going to start off our children for their future. The other challenge is that the teachers we have out there for the centers are either very few or non-available for those institutions. Some of these institutions are closed because there are no teachers. But where the teachers are there are very few in terms of what they are required to do. Again, the other challenge with the teachers are that they are not people with adequate education for that kind of work. I therefore feel that the right method is that the TSC should take them over. That's when we can have a uniform standard within the nation. I want to also address the issue of the classrooms where they are taught. I heard some of my colleagues say that some classrooms are dilapidated. That's probably generous in comparison to what I know the situation is in a constituency such as mine. Some of the buildings they are in are condemned buildings. And this does not even apply to the ECD classes alone. I have so many of them in primary, so many of condemned classrooms, both in primary and secondary schools. When I say this, Madam Speaker, I throw my mind back to what happened, I think yesterday, when the Minister or the CS for Education closed a school within Nairobi because it looks as if the classroom which caused that bad incident ought to have been condemned before. Now, if our education is to really continue smoothly with some safety, I would ask and urge very seriously that the government checks the kind of classrooms we have so that they provide and give us money to take care of these condemned classrooms. The first-timers like me, some of us have inherited condemned schools in our constituencies. And this is causing us a hard time because much as personally I would like to sort out the issues of condemned classrooms, the demands for from the other areas or schools is so much that if I were to concentrate on condemned schools, it means I will be ignoring some of the requests we get from other areas of the constituency. I therefore would very much emphasize on classrooms, Madam Speaker. Now, for the children themselves, we need to take a serious step to ensure that they are enrolled so that some of them are not left behind for an important kind of approach to their future that we are trying to fortify by sanctioning this bill. I would say that I'm very glad the children who are in these institutions, the classrooms for ECD, are benefiting. But I would like the benefit to go across the board so that we are able to give adequate education to our children. Again, it is not clear as to whether they should pay fees or not. I know the bill is trying to address this issue. But at that stage, it would have been very adequate and in fact better for the parents if they are given that kind of education without paying. I'm aware that the county governments are responsible for ECDE, although in terms of practicality, you find parents think that all those fall within the responsibility of the member of parliament. Madam Speaker, thanks so much for having given me the opportunity to talk about this important bill. I once again say I support the bill. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
Very well, very well. This member, your card has been, yeah? And members, please, if you are leaving, please notify us that you're not leaving, you're not coming back, or you're consulting. Like the member for the Tonki, he's left his card here, and of course I cannot see him in the house. We had called the member for Igembe South. I'm aware you were consulting, but before I give it to you, allow me give it to, and Honorable Emuhaya, you made a contribution, and you're aware, if you spoke to this motion, which you are consulting, if you're not speaking to it, you're somewhere. But I can tell you were speaking to something different before. So before you, let me have the member for Chepalungu. Yes, have you spoken on this one? Yes, yes, I was right. You have spoken on this one because your card was on request. And member for Chepalungu,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice on this very important bill that touches about our young, tender-age children. Madam Speaker, despite the growing importance of early childhood education, especially in Kenya, a number of challenges has faced the childhood education, and it has pulled down its policy framework in putting in place a proper framework for upkeep of our children. Madam Speaker, when you look at across Kenya, there is less attention from the government side in terms of putting proper attention to equipping young children at their tender age during the development stage of education. It is believed, Madam Speaker, that a successful program that are given to our young children at nursery school or early childhood education, it is believed when it is successfully implemented, it gives out quality children through the primary level and secondary level. Madam Speaker, we have the challenges of inadequate teaching. We have lack of learning resources. We have poor salaries, especially to the teachers of ECD. To change the life of a young kid, it needs a lot of attention. All the teachers on primary, on nursery schools in Kenya should be paid almost at the level of a secondary school teacher, because they give more attention to these children if we want quality education after the nursery education. There are a lot of things that are required, like the playing field. Learn is very important, because these children need a lot of time to go and play and also be given attention in class. There is ECD teachers in Kenya. The government should take it up as a national government function, not a default function. Because with the mixed activities that are required from the county governments. This one is very essential because it determines the future of this great nation. Madam Speaker, we want to request the government to fully take over the payment, the fees that are required for these young children. It should be free because we want to bring on board all the children to ensure that the nation is moving forward as one. With those very many remarks, I want to thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, the member for Chepalungu, at least for being considerate of your other members. Honourable members, I have 14 members who have requested to speak to this. And we are fair enough, I'm sure we'll all get opportunity to make a contribution. The member for Mogosho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this bill on early childhood education. The bill itself is very important. We all know that starting on the right footing for the young ones is always very critical. The young ones are fragile, and actually most of the time they are closer to their mothers or their parents as possible during those early stages. So having a good learning environment to start off their journey in education associated with ECDs or establishment of ECDs includes not only restricted to that, but includes acquiring of land. Most of the times, you find that acquiring of land to put up ECDs is a problem. Although these are county functions, we know ECDs are county functions. Members, console kidogo.
Order. I only address the speaker. I'll deal it for you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The two members, you are disrupting the honorable member for Mogosho.
Thank you.
Please, can he be heard and in silence?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for coming to my aid. As I said, in my constituency, the major challenges associated with ECDs, the first one involves acquisition of land to put up the facilities. And although we all know these are county function, most of the times they approach me to assist them through the CDF to acquire the land. I know in this particular bill, they have actually talked about restricting to an acre, but most of the times in my constituency, these particular ECDs later become primary schools, Madam Speaker. And more often, they need to acquire a little bit more than an acre so that they grow slowly to become primary schools. The other challenge, Madam Speaker, is the distance between these ECDs. We all know these children are around 3-4 years old. They virtually cannot really go long distances. So putting up several ECDs is quite necessary, but most of the time you find that the county governments have really abandoned that particular function. They have actually gone slowly, and they are not actually putting up these facilities on record time. Another challenge, which I actually, when I visit these ECDs, I see that the status of the infrastructure is not quite good, Madam Speaker. You find that most of the times, most of the floors are really full of dust, and the children are learning in environments which are not conducive for learning. Even access to good, clean water and sanitation sometimes become a problem. And therefore, this particular bill, looking at it closely, Madam Speaker, I see that they have tried to be as comprehensive as possible. They have looked into the issues of registration requirements. They have also looked into the issue of curriculum, standardization of curriculum for all ECDs countrywide. They have talked of management of ECDs, having board of managements, and even payment of teachers, because payment of teachers is also another challenge in areas. Like I've seen most of our ECDs, parents have to chip in. As other members have mentioned, Madam Speaker, the issues of fees payment or fees challenges is something which needs to be clarified clearly. And I think the county governments need to really to hop up their game in terms of actually managing these particular structures. We know that These particular ECDs feed pupils finally to primary schools, and therefore we as in charge of the primary schools, we need to work closely with ECDs. I know most of the ECDs are attached to primary schools, and therefore the management of these particular institutions should closely work with the administration, the sub-county education officials, so to see to it that by the time the ECD pupils graduate to standard 1 and after them, that is properly done. I know we are moving to a new program of CBC, that is